Present data analytics and data.
So I am Steve Wexler. I am the founder, principal, and sole employee of Data Revelations. I was Tableau's inaugural Iron Viz champion. That was back in 1957. It was a much smaller thing back then. For the first 4 years of this event, the rules have not changed that much, but for the first 4 years it was a breakout session. It was not this keynote session with Andy Cotgreave in this crazy costume and fog machines and lights and all that type of production values. I am a Tableau Zen master, and yes, if you've been a Zen master 5 times and there's a unanimous decision, you get entered into the Hall of Fame. It does say Tableau Zen master on my business card, and as Jeremy pointed out, that's an actual thing. If you're not in the Tableau community, or if you are and you don't realize it's an actual thing, and I hand you a card and it says Tableau Zen Master, you think I'm a complete tool. What guy calls himself a Zen Master? It is a real thing, and I'm certainly proud of it, although the thing I'm most proud of within the data visualization space was being one of the 3 authors of the Big Book of Dashboards. So thank you for mentioning that. And we will be doing a drawing at the end of this first report on to give away a free copy of it. So, by the way, that is Andy Cotgreave's beautiful bookcase, and essentially it was an attempt to distill our now, I don't know, 45 years combined experience of data visualization into a single book. For the most part, the reviews of the book have been excellent. It is in its 3rd printing. There have been some notable exceptions. This one comes from Andy's daughter. This is my dad's book, and I think it's really boring because it's about dashboards. In all fairness, she was not the target market for it. Just a quick question. How many of you have ever worked on a product or service, and when you're creating it, when you're in the throes of it, you have an idea of how people are going to use it? And then when it comes out, you see people using it in ways that you had never anticipated before. Any of you ever do work on that, where you think, you know, or maybe you've seen a product, you know, and then, wow, and now people are using this in ways we never intended. That's certainly the case with the Big Book of Dashboards. People will send us examples, or they'll tweet examples of how they're using it in ways we didn't initially envision. This is one of my favorites. So let me give you the agenda. So I am going to build a fully functional Tesla with just 2 rows of data in Tableau. So it's no, there are actually some of my colleagues who can do stuff like that. They'll say, okay, here's 2 rows of data, and I'm going to make something that looks ridiculous. I'm just going to show you some useful things in Tableau. Start simple, and we'll get into more complicated. Just out of curiosity, how many people are pretty new to Tableau? 6 months or fewer in it? How about 6 months to a year? Okay, how about 1 to 2 years? Okay, how about 2 to 5 years? And how about 5 or more years here? Wow, so we've got 0 to infinity here. Certainly impressive. I'm hoping that maybe, you know, everyone here, look, there isn't. I've been using this product since May 2006. That is almost, holy crap, that's 14 years with with Tableau. I'm constantly learning stuff and seeing stuff that I didn't know about. I hope that's the case here, that at least one thing that maybe you hadn't seen before. First thing I'm going to start with is what we're going to call kind of fun with discrete measures. And particularly what I'm going to do is, by the way, everyone wants to know, when's your birthday?
My birthday?
Yeah.
November 2nd.
Do we have any November 2nds here? Okay. You can still stay. and later on, someone will tell you what's going on. At some point, hopefully earlier than later in your Tableau journey, someone explains what blue pills mean and what the green pills mean. And blue does not mean categorical data, and green doesn't mean measure. It means discrete versus continuous. It just turns out that measures like being green most of the time, and dimensions like being blue most of the time, but it doesn't have to stay that way. So let me explain what I have in mind. So I've got the infamous Superstore data. I'll put subcategory up here. I'll put sales up here. And I'm going to sort this in descending order. But by the way, if you're going, wait a second, why do I actually see that stuff moving? This is the brand spanking new copy of Tableau that has the transition stuff on it. Well, take a look at this for a second. What I've got here is sales and the actual number, but you know, maybe I want percentage. So rather than the dollar value, maybe I want the percent of the total. Well, suppose I wanted both. How could I get this? You know, so I'll put percent of total on here, yeah, and I'll also put sales on here. And if you're wondering, gee, why is it, that doesn't look very good. You know, it had a number on everything. Now it only has a number on 3 things. Anyone know what's going on there?
Overlap the labels.
Sorry?
The labels don't overlap.
That's exactly. If I click label over here, and if I say allow labels to overlap, well, that's why it doesn't want to do that. So that looks pretty bad. So now we get into this and realize, oh, it's on 2 different rows. Maybe I'll put it on the same row. Yeah, that works, but that is not friendly or inviting. It's cluttered, we have one of the practitioners of storytelling with data here, Elizabeth Grist, and they spend a huge amount of time discussing decluttering your visualization, and I've become a pretty big believer in this. So people understand what we're trying to get here. I want the dollar value and I want the percent, but I don't want it to look like crap, and that looks like crap. So what might we be able to do? So, well, first of all, I'll put sales up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take sales and put it over here on rows, and we're going to get something that looks really stupid. Because by default, this is a green pill meaning continuous, and Tableau just wants to show, oh, I'm not going to show a discrete, distinct value. I'm just going to go from a low value to a high value. Whenever you're dragging something that's green and you've got rows and columns, Tableau wants to draw an axis. Well, how many of you have learned the all-powerful, if you don't like something in Tableau, try right-clicking it and maybe you'll see a good option. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to right-click this, I'm going to say make it discrete. Okay, so now it's turned blue, and now I've got the value here. Well, now I'm going to do the same with percent of total. Right-click it and make it discrete, and there we go. We have a cleaner viz.
That's all I need.
Okay, so do we have at least, hold on, let me, fit the height here. And so you now have a clean viz. I'm not even sure you even need the numbers, but there are most people that I'm trying to get to be happy with data visualization. They're saying, I want the numbers, I want to see a spreadsheet, I want to have it. So simple technique, take the thing that wants to be green, make it into something that's blue. Let me change some formatting of this. Let me hide these things. I don't like Tableau's default values on things so much. So let me show you the look and feel I kind of like on things. So I'm going to right click in the middle of this thing, and I'm going to go to format. By the way, to this day, that this does one thing and this does another thing drives me nuts. That this is borders and this is lines. What's the difference between a border and a line? Come on. So let me get rid of let me go to borders, and let me get to row borders, and, borders, and I don't want there to be row dividers here. And you know what? I'm going to go to columns. I don't want there to be column dividers either. I'm not even sure I'm a big fan of these grid lines that are over here. And I'm not even sure I need this at the bottom because I got the numbers right here. So, maybe I'll get rid of oh, here's another thing that drives me nuts. okay? So one of those things is called borders, the other is called lines. This thing called show header. The bottom thing in the visualization is called the header. What do you call the top thing? The header. What do you call the thing on the side? The header. Anything that surrounds the chart itself is called the header. Okay, so, and, all right, the only, additional thing I like is, I like there to be a really clear baseline. The reason humans are so good, why you see so many bar charts, is humans are ridiculously good at comparing the length of bars from a common baseline. So I'm going to put a nice baseline in here, and I'm going to do that by going into axis rulers, and let me, maybe darken this up, thicken it up a little bit, just so you can see what I'm affecting, is this thing right there. So I've now got this common baseline, I've got a kind of a nice look to it. Also, I tended to, I'm probably going to use blue at some point in my dashboard or in a collection of dashboard. And it's probably going to mean either good or bad. Here, there's nothing good or bad, so I'm going to save blue for something else. So I've now created a clean, simple, and rather boring bar chart, but it's now kind of has the look and feel that I want for it. Well, here's what I did earlier. Let's get that guy out of the way. That looks really horrendous, doesn't it? By the way, that is really indicative of some of my earlier work in Tableau. Here's the thing. I just spent 2 or 3 minutes getting this thing exactly the way I want. I don't really want to spend 2 or 3 minutes getting this exactly the way I want. So it turns out I can right-click this tab, go to Copy Formatting, then right-click this tab and say Paste Formatting. Ah, wow. Ooh, I'm getting enough oohs and ahs here that this is a, by the way, that has been in the product for at least 7 years, and tons of people don't know about it. It's just been sitting there, so it's a nice little gem, and it's going to save you a bunch of pain and suffering. Hold on one sec. I've got to find something. I haven't tried this one in a while. Have any of you ever used the internet before? It's the, you've stumbled upon a website and you find a table that looks something like this, and you'd like to visualize that data that's in there. It turns out the clipboard can be a data source. So you can just copy and paste this and then visualize it. So let's say, imagine this is not a Word document, it's a web page, but I can right-click this, click Copy. I'll go to Data and Paste, and it turns out I now have a new data source called the clipboard, and if I decide, oh, you know what, I'd like to
what version is that available in the clipboard?
Probably version 3, going back to 2007. It's been there for eons. So by default, it wants to create something that looks like this. Let me kind of clear this out, but I'll put the date over here, and I'll put unemployed over here, sort this in descending order, and there you've got a viz. But by the way, tons of people don't know about that. So, and I don't know if it goes back to version 3. I can't remember when it first came out.
Around for a while.
Has it? Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're like, yeah.
I think it's been around for a while. The paste formatting has been around for a while, and this taking something that wants to be green and turning it blue, or taking something that by default is blue and making it green, that's also been around for a while. So that should be able to help you out. Hold on one sec. Okay. So 3 really simple.
The pasting could be done in just an open blank sheet. You don't have to go to the data. If you open the
Well,
sheet-
so here, I could be file new, here I am, brand new type of thing, you're gonna have to be inside a a blank workbook.
Yeah, a worksheet,
Yeah.
any blank worksheet, if you paste, it's gonna read the data.
Here we go. So I'm in here. So here I am in the sheet, and I just click on the data menu, and I say paste. And you've got,
You don't even have to do that. If you open a sheet and just Control V, paste,
yeah.
it just-
Oh, thank you.
Control V.
Control V. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm just being alone for a long time.
All right. So I want to show you how to make there are so many names for this chart. It's called a connected dot plot. It's called a dumbbell chart. It's called a barbell chart, or it's also called a gap chart. So let me just explain what I've got here with the data. I've got some, if you want to see everything that we've got here, you can right-click age and say, gee, I want to see the ages of everybody that's here. Make it discrete. And I want to see what people, what average salary is for each of these people. And I've got gender here as well. That's not particularly useful or helpful to try to do stuff on. Ooh, somebody here is making a lot of money. But what I've done is I've binned the ages, and maybe I'd like to see average salary by age bin. People who are between 20 and 29, between 30 and 39, 39 and 40, and I'll look at what the average salary is, although looking at averages with salary is dangerous stuff, and we'll get into that in a little bit. This is going to be part of the bane of your Tableau existence. This is called a paired or clustered bar chart. And it's really hard to see, gee, I want to look at, for this age bin that's up here, the age 20, the difference between men and women, and between 30 and 39, the difference between men and women, etc. Part of it is just because of the spacing. Excel handles this really well, where you'll have within this group, and then you'll have a lot of white space, and then the next group. Tableau, you can do that, but you're kind of fighting it. I would argue, I want to show you a better way to do this overall, which is, where are the biggest gaps between average salary for men versus women? Is it amongst 20-year-olds? Is it amongst 60-year-olds? And this is kind of hard to see in this. So let me show you a different way of doing this. So I'm going to put age up here. I'm going to put average salary, and again, I'm going to try to raise a flag why, you just need one or two people that are making an outrageous salary, and it looks like it skews everything. So I'll put average salary here, and I'm going to change this, instead of being a bar chart, I'm going to say make it a circle. And then I'm going to put gender on color. So what have I done here is I've said I'd like there to be the mark type is going to be a circle. And it's going to create one colored circle for men and another colored circle for women. Let me change the size of this a little bit. What I want to do is try to accentuate the gap. So I can see immediately amongst 30-year-olds, there's not much of a gap, but looks like the biggest gap is among 40-year-olds. By the way, I know how to read this thing, maybe my audience does, but I will often create a calculated group in Tableau, and I'll say 20 to 29, 30 to 39, and do it that way, so people realize, oh, I understand how the binning is working. So I'm sure a bunch of you have seen this next part, which is I'm going to create a second chart. By the way, you can just look up, how do I create a barbell chart or dumbbell chart, connected dot plot, and you'll see why it's also called a gap chart. You can just type it into Google and you'll get lots of step-by-step instructions. Let me go to, I've got two charts here. This first one and now this second one. I'm clicking the second one. I'm going to say, make this one a line chart. Now Tableau thinks, oh, you want me to draw a line between 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, etc. No, I want to draw a line between men and women. You see that there's this path choice here? Tableau is guessing how it should draw the line. I want it to do it like this. So I'm saying, oh, you want me to draw lines between the two, between the mark for men and the mark for women? Yes. Now I will, instead of making this two separate charts, I will make it a dual axes chart. I will synchronize the axes, and I will move the line chart to the back, so it's behind. And I've now got a pretty attractive looking gap chart. We're going to get better and better, by the way, with this. Also, these axes are exactly the same. Dual axes is often when you want to try to show sales and profit on the same chart, and I think it's really dangerous. I'm not a big fan of dual axes chart, but I can right-click this, and how do I get rid of this thing I don't want? Don't show the header. Well, I think this is fine as it is, but someone is saying to me, oh, I want to see the numbers. So, all right, I'll go to this first chart, and I'll turn mark labels on. Go, eek. Oh, well, this is just terrible. Let me go to not all, but just the first chart, and I'll put labels on. And this is where you start playing and going, let me try this. Let me go to label, and let me try right aligning the labels and centering them. Go, oh, well, that looks pretty good for everything except this one over here, right? And so, oh, maybe I'll make the chart wider. Yeah, that'll fix everything. No, not that. Oh, wait, I can say this and force this, and I can see why we're not getting this here. Hold on. I'll make the dot. This is welcome to the world of trying to get everything just right in Tableau. There we go. The dots are a little too small. In any case, I want them all to be right aligned, but over here I want them to be left aligned. And then you end up doing stuff, oh, I'll make up some data so it goes up to 80 years old, so I've got all this additional room that's over on the right. And you end up spending, it took you 5 minutes to get the chart to the point where it was a B minus or a B, and then you're spending 2 hours to get it to the point where it's an A. Well, did you know you could do this? I'll just take that mark and move it over here. Take this one and move it over here. And, okay, we're done. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Fess up, how many of you did not know you could do that? Thank you. So just to put this in perspective, it's now 4 years ago, myself, Jeffrey Schaefer, fellow Zen Master in Tool, and Andy Cochry, the guy who created the Tool/Zen Master program, we are speaking with either Robert Grouse or Joshua Milligan, and they're talking about this dashboard that they're submitting for the big book of dashboards. And we're discussing stuff, and we're saying, why did you do this? Would you mind doing this other thing? And at one point, he just takes the mark label and moves it. And like the three of us go, what did you just do? And so, you have people with this ridiculous amount of experience. Not one of us knew that you could do that. Question over here. You want them on? You want all of them on the right?
Yeah, I think there are only two that are on the left.
That are on the left. So it means I'm going to have to make
another hour. I know that, but how could you do that?
We'd have to. There are a variety of ways of doing it. You could copy and paste it into PowerPoint and put the labels there. We could add the additional data to do this.
Move it like you did?
No, the problem is I can't move it because there's no chart over here.
Can you just change the range on the x-axis?
The
To make effects?
no, I can't because it's discrete. What I would have to do is try to make this continuous. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. And then I can go here and edit the axes, and I can make it go higher and stuff like that. The answer is yes. And it's at what point do you know, is it no, this thing needs to be pixel perfect versus I don't need that. I'm going to argue, I'm not convinced we even need to have the numbers. I think it adds clutter to it, and I would try to fight for it. I would probably lose. By the way, I probably lose more than 50% of my battles when I'm trying to convince somebody to do something, so don't feel bad if people are not adopting stuff. I want to go a little further with this and show you some other ways, some things that have inspired me. I want to take it just a little bit further with this. And then want to go a little further yet. So this is from Pew Research. And they're putting the numbers on each side and stuff like that. And I liked something that they're doing very much. Let me see if you can, so I look at organizations whose work I admire. I'm wondering, well, what did they do in this situation? And what is it in their work that I like? And, oops, I didn't want you to see, but do you see, you know, I kind of like the thickness of the gap that's in there. And I also like this guiding line that's kind of going in between. Saying, you know, that looks pretty neat. So I've done something like this with the population pyramid. And how do we get that little, you know, how do we get that little line, you know, the little dotted line there? I think that looks really cool. Got all the numbers underneath. By the way, that's an easy way to solve the problem. Instead of going left, right, let's just, you know, tilt everything 90 degrees and put the numbers underneath and we're fine. So the other problem with it is the numbers are so big. And, you know, if we were to do, make them in Ks or whatever. So I don't think I've ever tried this with a group, but I'm going to try it now. So let me duplicate this sheet. Comet chart. 8, 19. And let me rotate this. Let me make, I got to hip you to some shortcut keys. There are something like 200 shortcut keys in Tableau. I don't want to show off, but I think I know 4 of them. And control right arrow makes the chart wider, control left arrow, control up arrow does this, control down arrow does this. So let's... Sorry?
Did that count as 1 or 4?
Oh, did that count as 1 or 4 tips? There we go. Let me go to label. Sorry. By the way, I've got 2 charts here, and I can select, do I want to select the circles, or do I want to select the lines? I usually go, you know, select the pills up here and get this. So let me go to label. Let me go to try automatic and automatic. Actually, it's got to be underneath. Oh, these numbers are too big for this to work, so sorry about that. I mean, default numbers, cards are custom. Boy. Oh, we're getting close. And I have the things, I think I have in what? Bottom and center. There we go. If I now go to this line over here and make it a bit thicker, and maybe make it a little lighter. How does that look? That looks pretty nice.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, the fact that the chart is this wide actually makes it a lot harder to read than when it was this way. But because I'm feeling a lot of stress from you because you want to see all the numbers. Let's bear with it like this. But let's see, how do we get that little dotted line there that I like so much? And this is where the Tableau community just kicks ass, and it's better than any community out there. I posted something either probably to Twitter, not to the forum, said, I'm trying to do this, I've come up with a way to do this, and it makes me very unhappy, because it was like hand chiseling. And Chris Love, fellow Tableau Zen master, he's also an Alteryx ace, the guy's master. He said, try this, put max 0 and as something that's on rows. So look at what that did. It creates a dotted line. It creates a 0 line. Wait a minute, okay, so wait a minute, let me make this, let me shorten this up a little bit, okay? Let me get rid of this thing here. Let me get rid of the header. Let me go to format here and get rid of, sorry, the row dividers completely. Ooh, we're getting really close. Do you see it?
Yeah.
We got, that line in there, and then for whatever reason, Tableau decided, because it wants to make me sad, that, oh, I'm going to make the circles a little bit smaller. But you've got yourself a lovely little gap chart that's there, and I just really like the look of that. So I've been doing that in a lot of my work, and let me see, where do I have it? It's not here, but do you notice something else that I'm doing here? The line is a different color depending on whether the green dot wins or the gray dot wins, whatever the green and the gray means. Just keep that in mind for a minute. So I want to walk you through something that's in the big book of dashboards. This is an exercise I do in the workshop, and I show this like balanced scorecard looking visualization. It's just numbers, and some of them are color-coded red, some of them are yellow, and some are green. And then for 15 minutes, people discuss everything that's bad about the dashboard, about this visualization. It turns out that thing was the catalyst for why there's a big book of dashboards. I had proposed in the book that here is what you should do instead. Since writing the book, I'm thinking, I'm wondering if this is the best way to do this. So let me explain what the bars are. The bar means the current period. The vertical line is the previous period. So gray bars mean we're doing better than the previous period. Orange bars mean we're doing worse than the previous period. And the red dot just means the change from the previous period is quote unquote statistically significant. And this is an okay way to do this. But I've since thought, is this how I would do it now? This is the first dashboard that made it in the big book of dashboards. I think it's chapter 6 in the book. And well, I wouldn't do it like this. This is a slope chart. But we show it as or a distributed slope graph. It's a possible way to do it. I had told people in the class that I think I would do this. I think this is better. And then a bunch of people said, no, they're having trouble seeing it. They're having trouble comparing the current period with the previous period. And by the way, this made me feel way better because I felt, man, I did a disservice doing it based on this. So the bar is the current period, the vertical line is the previous, and not only you can see it's down, but you can see how far it's down. And I said, well, look at this. Blue is the current period, gray is the previous period. But they protested, or they said, I'm not seeing now versus then. And I went home that night and said, okay, what is it that I'm seeing that they're not seeing? Came back the next day and said, what about this? And they went, ooh. Oh, I'm going to ask you to indulge me because we have enough people here and it will sound cool. Can you all just say, thank you. So I kind of labeled up at the top, previous versus current, and it's pretty easy to see where did it get bigger, where did it go down. by the way, this has like so much stuff that I like. It is playing to what humans do well. Comparing position from a common baseline. So it is analytically rock solid, but it also actually looks kind of cool. And we could even add another element into it, which is current period, previous period. We could have a vertical line, which is the goal. Are we above or below goal for the current period? So the name that has been dubbed, and I'm going to tell you who came up with the name for it, this is not I. This is called a Comet Chart. And they're ridiculously easy to make in Tableau. But you should not do it it needs to be something that has a clear ordinal type of thing, comparing this year versus last year, comparing seniors versus freshmen or something like that. You're not going to want to have the male dots be small and the female dots be large. Because that's just not going to cut it. So it will only work when we started here and we ended up here. And let me show you how to make it, because it's refreshingly easy. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to give dibs based on what research. The first person to coin the term Comet Chart is Andy Cotgrave. So he gets to add that to his Wikipedia entry if and when he gets a Wikipedia entry. So, creator of the term Comet.
He's definitely created one for himself.
What?
He's definitely created one for
You
himself.
think, I haven't checked, and I don't. It's not so easy to make one for yourself, by the way. Side note. My brother, if nothing else, comes up with the best snarky birthday cards on the planet for me. You know, there's whatever friction, and 2-3 years ago he sent a card saying, hey, I was looking on Wikipedia and there was nothing about you. Now it says you killed Abraham Lincoln. You're welcome. Got a kick out of that. All right, so let's create a Comet Chart. So I'm going to use different data. I'm going to go to Superstore data, and I'll go to product subcategory. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put order date on year, because, and we'll compare 2017 and 2016. And let me put profit on columns. Let me change this to a line chart. Ew. Let me put year of order date. I'm holding down the control key. That will leave it on filters, and I will put it on path. Okay, so we're getting someplace, and I'm going to put year of order date on size. So I at first thought, oh, I'm going to need to do a dual axis chart, a line and then put a dot or something like that, and I don't have to. And dang, this looks, this is looking pretty cool here. By the way, it'll work with between any 2 years. So now it's between 2015 and 2016. But gee, maybe I'd like to color code the dot a little bit. And maybe I want to label, what year this is and what year this is. Make this a little wider. And I'm going to right click here. And I want to show this label, except I want year to be on the label. Hold on. Wow, isn't that a mess? So let me go to label and say don't show mark labels. So what I've done is I want the year, but I only want it to be for this one. There we go. So now I've kind of established, oh, now I know how to read the chart. I'd like to color code this. And this is where, how am I going to do that? So I'm walking you through the same thing that's on the blog post. And, oh, I kind of would like this color coding. That looks pretty cool. And what that thing is saying is it's using a table calculation that says look up the profit for whatever is the most recent period and then subtract 1 over. So that's how we're going to color the comment. So I'm just going to copy this formula from this blog post and I'll create a new calculator. I can in fact go down here and just create a new, I can just paste this in and then drag this onto color and but change the compute using as a table comp to make sure that's using order date. And there we go. And you've now got a bona fide Comet chart. I'll do one more, yeah, question here.
Is it possible to just draw a thin line? Or something?
Oh, you want to draw, so,
Because, you know, when you're looking at it from a visual point of view, it's hard to discern some of the.
I completely agree. So, and I did not ask you to ask me how to do that ahead of time because it's a really great question. So, you know, part of this is we're kind of inheriting what we had earlier. This is, let me show you the default that Tableau might want to do, but I want to improve it. So by default, we would have had, something that looks like this. Oops, sorry. That's what Tableau wants to do. That's not what you asked me to do. So so that's exactly right.
Okay.
You can put the max 0 here. We're going to get some. It's going to enter some. It's going to give us what we want. It's going to create a bunch of stupid looking things, and the size of the dots make it go away. So now, let me not show the header and get rid of the thing that it thinks we want, but we don't. Is that working for you? And then, we could probably, I might sort this. Oh, it's interesting. Sort by field, sum of profit. Yeah, I'd probably do something like that so that we can have the most profitable to the least profitable things. So thank you for doing that. The other issue is, do you want to have these gradations of color, or do you just want it to be, hey, it's just make it gray if it's increased and just make it red if it's decreased versus dark red, darker red, etc. And the blog post will tell you how to do that. So I've got to say, there's some of the stuff I have underneath my fingers. Other stuff, like if I want it to look like this, I've got to look up, I've got to read my own, I don't remember how I did this. I have to read my own blog post. So do you see what the difference is? As opposed to the gradation, it's a solid red. So how do you get that? And it's here. So can't remember exactly what I did or how to build it. And you'll notice, by the way, I'm not doing the guideline that you like and I like. Instead, I've just got the borders in there. The max 0 will do that trick for you. Let me do one more thing with you, and then we'll just open this up to questions. So, quick review. We took a green pill and we made it blue so that we could have like numbers that are in the header. Anything that's on the left part of the chart, of this chart where the bars are going this way, but anything that surrounds the chart is called a header. We also saw that you can right click on a tab and say copy formatting, paste formatting. You can, the clipboard can become a data source, and I just showed you a bunch of ways to create a gap chart and then create a Comet chart. I want to show you how to do jittering. And now with the advent of animation in Tableau, I can kind of explain a little more what jittering is. This is like this salary comparison system, where you can type in your ID and see what is your salary compared with others. And here's what jittering is. Instead of all the dots just being in this strip, it just kind of randomly or semi-randomly moves them out. And I'm excited about animation because now I can explain, because people get confused. They're wondering, is there a difference between, oh, I need to have the pointer back on this thing, I'll get that. I'm gonna go old school. They're confused, is there a difference between this dot and this, this dot is to the left and this dot is to the right? Is there any different? No, it's just, we're just kind of spreading them out so you can see how many dots there are. Because when they're all in a strip like this, it's hard to see just how many dots and where do they cluster, but if we jitter the things, hey, we've got a kind of a better sense of that. So I'm gonna try to do this on the fly with some of the data that we have in here. By the way, these are not the only ways to do this type of thing. Here's another way to try to show the distribution of all the dots, etc. But let me see which one I've got here. Got Comet. Yeah, I'll just create a new worksheet. So I'll put the age bin here, and I'm going to put salary over here, and I'm going to put ID on detail. What is that going to do? It's going to create a separate mark for every single person that's here. If I instead make this a circle, I've now got something that looks like this. And I've got to tell you, I've got some outliers here that are going to really mess up my beautiful chart. I'm going to take care of them in a minute. But can you make heads or tails out of this thing? If you can't, maybe you can. This is where people will go to the color and they'll say, let me change the opacity, and to try to show, okay, I'm seeing a lot of salaries that are clustering from there. The other thing I'm going to do is, just for the sake of the example, I'm going to exclude these outliers. Thank you. And, well, how can we see what the distribution is? How can we see lots of dots are clustering? Change the size of them. What I'm going to do is, I want to jitter the dots. And there are several different ways to do this. I'm going to create a calculated field called index. Index just means what row am I in? Well, you're in row 32. Oh, okay, I'm going to move your dot to position 32. What row are you in? I'm in row 17. I'm going to move you over to 17. It will do that within, what row are you within this, within the 20-year-olds, within the 30-year-olds, within the 40-year-olds? Sorry. You actually have to have the index function itself. I'm going to put index up here. It's going to look stupid. But now I'm going to say compute using my ID. And we're now starting to see, the dots moving left and right. Notice the 20-year-olds or whatever, you can see that, gee, there aren't a whole lot of them, and there aren't a lot of people that are 70 or older. So one of the things I'm going to do is, let me edit this. And I'm going to say, instead of putting it in the row, I'm going to say put it in one of 10 predefined slots. Oh, by the way, you hold down the control key and move your mouse. You can make the formula larger so people in the back who are nodding off can see it. This is just saying, do you remember modular arithmetic? That was, what is the remainder when you divide by a number? So this could be mod 8, mod 10. It says, if this is in row 22, take 22 divided by 10, what's the remainder 2? It's going to put it in row 2. So this is going to kind of normalize everything with the dots. And maybe I'll go over here to the axes. So I know it goes from, now goes from 0 to 9. I'll fix the axes here. I'll go from -4 to 13. We will mute. And let me get rid of all these reference lines and things like that. Get rid of the grid lines and the 0 lines. Sorry. There we go. And maybe make the size of the dots a little bit larger. And the last thing I would do is I put some reference lines here to say 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile. I am not a fan of box plots. How many of you have seen a box plot before? Who has never seen one of these things before? They're really useful. The midpoint over here, that's median. That's 75th percentile, that's 25th percentile, and the whiskers indicate an outlier, and anything above the whisker is considered an outlier by the formal definition of an outlier using this type of chart. My audience won't get this. My audience will get something that looks like this. Lower quartile, median, upper quartile. So I'd recommend doing something like that. But showing the distribution, wickedly useful, and I want to try to drive this home. Let me see where I've got this. Let's see, I have it in here. Yeah. Take this in for a minute. This is the problems with averages. You go to some website, you get some report, and this is showing your salary compared with the average of everybody else. Okay? So you're the orange dot. How pissed off are you? No? A little bit peeved? No? You're looking at this and going, okay, I'm making $82,000. That's a good salary. But the average salary is like $114,000. Now, what's going on with this? Well, maybe I haven't been with the company as long, maybe I don't have as much experience. Let me show you exactly the same data, but a different way of presenting it, and you're going to go from being a little peeved to livid. This is exactly the same stuff. Okay? Now, look where your dot is. Okay? Upper quartile, medium, lower quartile. You are way down here on this thing. It's exactly the same thing because you, instead of seeing averages, you're realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's tons, there's some people making 180, 150, etc. So I'm a huge believer in if and when you can, especially with something which can be as all over the place as salary. I'm trying to show disaggregated data. This is one way to show it. Here's another way to show it. It's called a Wilkinson dot plot for those of you who would like to do it. And then explaining jittering to people. Here's your salary, and here's everybody in the strip. This is the box plot, which I don't like. And I remember Andy Cotgreave kind of going, this is how you show this. This is how, people have been doing it for 40 years. I'm going, I don't like it. My audience doesn't like it. Here it is, the box plot with everything jittered, and here's the way I would prefer to show it, because I don't think I have to work as hard to explain it. So